Welcome to Marriage Matters with host
Bryant
and Shonda Wright.
Welcome to Marriage Matters.
Well, your marriage matters to us.
I'm Bryant.
And I'm Chanda Wright.
Right.
Right? Right. Today we're still talking about communication. Who you think you're talking to? Who you think you're talking to? Who you think you're talking to? Tell me how you really feel. So that's how you feel, huh? Okay. We dealing with
non-verbal communication.
We've talked about verbal communication and we've talked about nonverbal communication. And we're going to continue talking about the nonverbal communication a little bit, and then we'll go on to the next written and visual a little bit.
Can you see me? Visual?
I don't know.
Maybe you don't know.
I don't know. Is you invisible?
I'm invisible.
You thought you was invisible. Okay, so with nonverbal communication, we talked about the silent treatment being a form of nonverbal abuse. With verbal communication, we talked about verbal abuse being critical and saying hurtful and demeaning things to your spouse or to others in your communication, and thinking that that's okay or that it's normal to
say whatever you feel like saying, which is not normal and it's not okay, not to your spouse, not to your kids, not to your mother, not to whomever, your dog, your cat. You
know that what come up, come out, I don't care type communication.
Yeah.
That we've become accustomed to as a culture in a sense.
So are you saying that's not becoming of God?
All that, yeah. But anyway, I wanted to talk about if you do, well, we talked about vulnerability, being vulnerable. And what I want you to know is, if you don't respect your spouse's being vulnerable, you go respect that gangster. You heard me?
This is true.
You heard me?
This is true. And I also will add, for men, I'm not going to say what we say is for every woman or every man, but for men, a lot of times, because of the way we've been raised, it's kind of hard for men to be vulnerable. So we've been raised, you a man, dust yourself off, men don't cry, don't act like a little punk or whatever the case may be. And so when you come from that type of background, or you're taught that you don't supposed to show weakness, now when you have a man that's in a relationship and you've gotten him to begin to communicate out of his vulnerability, you have won the battle. And so if that man to communicate out of his vulnerability and you just crush it, or you just demean it, or you make him feel weak because he's doing so, good luck getting him to be vulnerable again, except for God.
True. That is very true. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay for them to go gangster on you, to get crazy. I'm not endorsing that.
Advocating that? No.
Not at all. No. That's not what I'm saying. But the fact still remains. If you don't respect their vulnerability, they're gonna go gangster on you. As simple as that.
You're gonna get in their emotions.
Yes.
So I try to communicate properly in my vulnerability, and I tried to do what's right and I still get ran like a stop sign, one of the most important things to men is respect. So if they're communicating out of vulnerability and then you just squash them like a bug, that's gonna be the ultimate disrespect. So you're gonna have a hard time getting through to that man, because if you don't know, and some people may not know, the most important thing to a man is that respect. If you think about the scripture, it told women, God said to honor your husband. It didn't necessarily tell you to love your husband, but it says honor your husband. So when it's out of that honor, that reverence or that respect, you know, that man does feel love.
Correct, I got it.
Is that your playlist?
No, that ain't my playlist. Yeah, I thought that was your song. Get out of here with that.
I am communicating effectively. That would be nonverbal, maybe visual.
That's audible.
Audible.
Yeah, that music be talking loud and it be saying something. You know, when people get in their emotions and they listen to certain songs, it triggers them.
It can't send you off the deep end. Be aware. Be aware.
And there's a saying, I can't hear what you saying for seeing what you're doing.
Ooh. I'm not really sure, but basically, you know, or what we say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So
that part.
If you saying something to me, you trying to communicate something to me, and your body language is just off, we gonna have an issue. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the mature thing is to try to maybe get to understand it, but what's coming out of your mouth don't match up with what your body is saying, or your body language, or if it's stank or whatever the case may be, then it's gonna be an issue. You're not gonna be heard. They're not gonna hear what you're saying. It's not gonna be communicated, and it's not gonna go over well with your spouse or whomever, your kid or whomever that you may be speaking with, because of your body language, or you know, or the manner that you present it to them.
Yeah, I had a hard time with that in my marriage. I'm gonna be very transparent.
What?
I had a hard time with that, and that saying, it never, it never resonated with me that's what that saying meant. That, like we talked about the nonverbal cues. So I've even had wives say that to me as well, and the husband be like, no, you ain't yelling no more, but you still got a messy way of saying what you're saying, you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
So all you did was tone your voice down, but you still nice nasty as you always been, you know, and the woman thinking, I'm doing good because I ain't yelling. You know what I'm saying? And the spouse, the husband right there to defend it and say, nah, you ain't yelling, but you still...
You ain't doing all that you think you're doing.
Yeah, you still just as critical and hurtful and demeaning with your... Yes, with your soft answer. Because the Bible says a soft answer turn away wrath.
But that's not a soft... out of your mouth it might be soft, but the visual...
The tone.
That you give it is all wrong.
Yes.
And it's all wrong. It is not gonna solve the issue, because basically what you're doing at that particular point is you communicating out of your emotions.
Yes, so your tone might have changed, but your language or the words or
Your body language,
all those things
is snitching.
It still hasn't changed. And when we talk about it, if you think about physical abuse, in a physical abusive relationship, the spouse a lot of times will say, you know, I love you, I didn't mean it, and all of that. But then here we go again. With the same abusive behavior.
The two don't match. I love you, ain't mean it, but I'm going upside your head. And by no means, like, now I joke a lot of, you know, because it's like we giving great information or positive information or strong information, but sometimes people can't handle it. So my personality kind of covers it or glosses it over a little bit. I guess like when you were younger, you had to take medicine. They would give you something where you can digest the medicine or whatever. But by no means necessary am I laughing at physical abuse or verbal abuse, you know, because there's nothing to laugh at. PSA or whatever, or just giving a disclaimer. Nobody should be in that type of situation, verbal nor physical. And you need to seek help, get help dealing with that matter.
Yes, as soon as possible, because it's important to have a healthy relationship, and that's not good for your health.
No, it's not good for you. It's not good for your health. If you got kids, it's not good for the kids' health, because then, now we was talking about it last time, and now you have the kids that are beginning to communicate out of toxicity or whatever the case may be. That's correct. Maybe, I don't know.
What? Toxicity?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The point is taken, though. Yeah, you are building another generation of toxic communicators.
Whether they want to or not. And we've seen situations where the individual, male or female, couldn't stand the parent that was physically abusive or whatever the case may be, and they became just like the parent. But moving right along.
Yeah, people become physically abusive, can be like a generational curse or a generational issue. I mean, it's tough. And for a long time, we didn't seek counsel or any kind of psychological help for our emotional trauma.
Facts.
And that's the reason why it would pass on from one generation to another. Because if you don't know how to fix it, it's not going to get fixed. Yeah, it's going to continue from generation to generation. So that's another important point, is to get help and to seek help for your emotional trauma.
It's like you always say, emotions buried alive
are still alive. And when we talk about emotions, when you get in your emotions, you can't think straight, hear straight, see straight, or make good decisions. And so if you're running around or walking around life being led by those said emotions, you won't have a lot of healthy relationships, and you will be more likely abusive, whether verbally or physically.
To communicate in a toxic manner is basically what will happen.
And it's very detrimental. It's very detrimental. So that's a sticking point with the nonverbal communication, because a lot of times, again, like I said, the wife saying she don't communicate the way she used to, she don't yell and scream and do all that no more, she doing good, and the husband say nope. She's
using the cloak and dagger technique.
Yeah, she's still doing all that. She just toned it down. She's just not yelling and screaming when she says what she says. But it's still just as offensive. And we're running that point home just because I believe that that's like physical abuse, verbal abuse gets a back seat a lot of times, and it's not recognized. Physical abuse you can recognize. That's just like an alcoholic or somebody smoking loud or whatever they do.
You can recognize that.
They reek a lot of times of alcohol or loud, and it's more recognizable versus maybe a person popping a pill or doing some other type of...
That's recognizable as well.
Well,
a lot of times.
Well, it's not just by, the
behavior,
regular,
but it's not a smell to it or whatever the case may be, but the behavior would be, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, so when you're talking physical, it's more recognizable. When you're talking verbal abuse, it's not as recognizable because, like we said, people in your culture or your environment is the way everybody talks. So if everybody's doing it, then...
It must be normal, right?
You're not going to fix it. Because if it's not broke, you're not going to fix it. Or if you don't know it's broke, you're not going to fix it until it collapses up from up under you.
No, you can't fix something that you don't... If you're operating in a manner that you've always operated in, until you begin to seek to get help, or first and foremost, like they said about if it's like the drug situation, first thing you got to admit, you got to know that you got a problem.
Right.
When you know that you got a problem, then you can get help. But if your mom was talked to that way, if your dad talked to your mom that way, or your mom talked to your dad that way, it's normal. It's normal. You're not going to see anything wrong with it, you know. And so it will persist.
Again, yeah, generation after generation, it'll be a common, normal type thing. We talk about sometimes we've talked about learned behavior versus the norm or normal behavior. What to you is normal, but it may not have been correct or healthy.
Just because you've seen it, it's just funny that you said that, because just thinking about communication, a co-worker of mine, son was with him, and I'm listening to the way that he was talking to his father, and if I would have talked to my father in that manner, it would have been one of those chokehold moments or whatever, WWE wrestling,
Right.
you know, or whatever the case may be, but it was a toxic moment, and I'm just thinking to myself, to me, it came off like automatically, that's not right. That's not right because I've been taught better, I know better, but the father didn't really even have a problem with it, or issue with it, and it was very disrespectful to me.
Right, and that goes back to the marriage, when you apply that to the marriage, and how the wife sometimes takes the legs from under the husband.
Man, decapitates the husband, let alone take the legs off, you know, and that's can be an issue.
And once that's done, that would cause the kids to also be disrespectful to the father, their father, the husband.
Yeah, that's when you allow for the playing of one against each other, whatever the case may be, and things has been said in front of the kids or whatever. Still toxic environment, you know, and it's all the above. It's the verbal, it's the nonverbal, it's communicating the wrong way, communicating out of your emotions, and just plain out being disrespectful. And I think you may be on to something when you said that.
Yeah, because we talk about it all the time. We've had marriages that we've couples we've talked to that on the verge of divorce because they can't even
Discipline the kid.
Yeah, you know. And a lot of times it's been the mother bear that has communicated in such a disrespectful way to the husband that the kids don't respect them, and it becomes a toxic environment.
That's not having that respect. When you don't have that respect, that's when that plays a part. And he's not the head. You don't allow him to be the head, or he hasn't taken authority to be the head in the household. And it's too much drama, or it's too much hell he got to go through to be the head. And so, you know, the whole saying, if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody gonna be happy, or hell has no fury like a woman scorned. So you don't allow that man, you see it over and over again, you don't allow that man to be the father or the head of the house as he's supposed to be. And then when the kid gets older and they out of control, now you want him to fix it.
Yep.
Now you want him to fix it.
Yep.
And it's too late for him to fix it.
Yep. And now it's a really bad situation to whereas in some instances the kid want to put hands on the mama, you know, or the daddy for that matter. If they think
If they think they're right.
Right, yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah, so in those situations, it goes back to a lack of knowledge, you know? And like I said, you could be disrespectful and not know you being disrespectful. That's a whole nother issue.
True.
So when we're talking about the communication, just same as the verbal abuse or the nonverbal abuse, you can be abusive and really not know it, that you're being abusive because, again, of culture and what's been deemed the norm.
What's the norm in your household, or the norm where you come from,
right?
Or whatever the case may be. And then when that happens, that you at such a disadvantage because now you're going to take, it's not limited where you take that type of behavior. You're going to take it to the workplace. You're going to take it to wherever you go. If you begin to go to a church, you're going to take it to the church. You're going to take it, just you see it show up time and time again in our environment. Just the other day, I ordered some food from a restaurant, and the disrespect that the young lady, displayed in her communication on the phone. I'm like, I wasn't even about to get the food. It's like, this would be my last time ever going to that restaurant because your communication. And to her, she's probably thinking like, I didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly. And that's the point we're trying to bring home because it's so normalized,
To say whatever, to do whatever, When you have them commercials that say, those that matter, those that mind don't matter, and those that matter don't mind. It's teaching you to be disrespectful. It's teaching you to only worry about your own feelings or whatever the case may be, and that's the culture that we're living in. And it's sending the wrong message, to different people in our society.
Yeah, because the respect is the way things are these days. Respect has gone out the window in a lot of instances. It's not, the older people don't get the respect they used to get. The grandparents and the conversation that a grandkid would have with a grandmother and be so disrespectful or combative with them. That's a whole nother topic. So anyway, I wanted to talk about, we mentioned before about having mature adult conversations and the importance of that. Like, we have marriage sessions with couples, and if instead of a person, it could be a misunderstanding in something that was said or done during that conversation, during that session, and instead of the person being mature and having a conversation with you about it, they just stop coming, or they complain, or they criticize, and they're not able to even receive
what they need from that session
to heal their marriage. So again, that goes back to the importance of being able to have a mature adult conversation.
It's important to be able to evaluate yourself and say, that's me. And a lot of times that would help the communication. That's another part of communication. Communicating in honesty. That's me. Or that's why sometimes I come back and I apologize, like, or I felt I came off wrong when I said that, so I apologize for the way I said that. That's being able to admit, your faults.
Yeah. And I will say, you've been pretty good at that lately. Again, 25 years married, 28 years later.
You just said about the woman taking the legs from under the man. I was just about to ride high.
I got to keep it real. You've been doing good. I'm not
keep
saying.
me level-headed, huh?
So, we also talked about being intentional or unintentional. Intentional usually goes meaning consciously doing something, when unintentional means unconsciously, subconsciously doing it, not unconsciously, but subconsciously doing something. And in communication, you have to be intentional.
You have to be intentional. And that means that means not letting your emotions rule you. And so when we allow our emotions to rule us, now we cannot be intentional in our conversating or our conversations. Now, the first thing come up is going to come out. And so generally when you're not in your emotions, you're more level-headed. It's like you're running it through that filter in your mind, like, should I say this? Or maybe I shouldn't say this, or this may come off wrong. And so when you get in your emotions, any and everything could come out. So you're not communicating maturely. You're throwing a tantrum.
Right. And then when we talked about throwing a tantrum, you're going to do that in your workplace, like you said. You're going to do it in the church. You're going to do it with your parents. You're going to do it with your spouse. Like, you're going to take that dysfunction into every relationship.
It won't be compartmentalized, that's for sure. It's just with a guy on our job, same thing. It's like, you can deal with people, and it's like dealing with a tornado of destruction. It don't make a difference the size of the person, big, small, or whatever the case may be. When you're dealing in dysfunction, you're dealing in dysfunction.
So being intentional and unintentional makes a difference, because in that instant or that situation, and the person let you know that it was not intentionally done,
But it hurts nonetheless.
it still hurts. Doesn't make it right,
I'm wounded.
but you understand a little better, or you can kind of be like, well, you know,
That still goes back to
maybe I
communicating.
overreacted.
That goes back to communicating and vulnerability to admit that you were wrong. You know, a lot of times it doesn't, sometimes people want to explain what had happened or what happened. A lot of times an explanation is not necessarily needed, or it can be given, but don't leave out the part where you say, I'm sorry.
Right. That's important. That's very important, because
I'm sorry.
everybody's feelings are
Valid. And that's a pet peeve of mine, you know, that everybody feelings are valid. You know, we as spouses, we don't get a chance to tell our spouse, or not just a spouse, but a kid or whomever that's feeling hurt, you know what I'm saying, that you hurt me. I didn't hurt you, or whatever. If they express that they've been hurt, then you need to, as far as being mature, you need to step up to the plate and hold your conversation or your rebuttal that I haven't hurt you, and figure out or respect what they're saying.
respect what they're saying, and be apologetic. Say, I'm sorry. Sorry can go a long way, because like we stated, most times it's unintentionally done. Like I tell people, you don't wake up in the morning saying you're gonna do this or that to hurt your spouse. How can I ruin my spouse's day today? That's not what we do.
Are you sure?
No. I'm not sure. But a normal, healthy relationship, that's not what we do.
Not a toxic.
Now, some people in toxic relationships may wake up and say, you know.
Have you ever seen the Water Roses? Somebody want to get even. They want their lick back.
Thank you for watching Marriage Matters.
I'm Bryant.
I'm Chanda.
Until next time, please tune in.
We're going to talk about sex.
Ooh, what? What? Nobody told me we were talking about the bat signal. Woo-hoo. That's all we have for today.
Oh, I bet you got something to say now, don't you?
We got to go.
Mister, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, I want to talk about it. Let's talk about I want to talk about it.
Marriage Matters, a production of World Outreach Conference Center, located 4 East 111th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60628. Phone number 773-264-2588. Bryant Wright, Shonda Wright, executive producers, DM Blossom, producer. Thanks for tuning in.